y'all. Kinsey Schofield here with Ted Rowlands, court TV anchor, victim to verdict host, and Coke Zero fan. Although he has been drinking a lot of Diet Coke lately because of a bulk Costco buy. Okay, Ted, it happens, right? It happens.
Yeah, bulk Costco buys. Just talked to Diddy's attorney. Basically, that's what he's claiming all that baby oil was and
Yeah.
lube. In that case, saying it was, hey, they just bought a lot because they got a great deal.
Yeah, so I'm teasing Ted because he is drinking a lot of Diet Coke, but he prefers Coke Zero. But the story that Diddy's attorney gave Harvey Levin in TMZ about the mass amounts of baby oil that authorities found at Diddy's house was that it could have been an error with a Costco purchase or some sort of wholesale corporation mistake. And I guess, Ted, I'd ask you, have you ever seen such a ludicrous kind of tap dance in your life when I mean, couldn't he have just said, I don't know what that's about, but I don't think it's relevant to the case or this conversation?
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it, it doesn't really matter. Right? That's one of the parts of the equation that makes everybody go, "Ooh, oh
Yeah.
my God, just weird," and it has nothing to do with forced or sexual, which is at the core of the charges against Diddy. So he should have just said, like you said, I don't know, or we're not going to talk about that, or yeah. But to come up with an excuse on that, which means nothing, boy. And if people are going to roll their eyes at that, just imagine what they'll roll their eyes at when the other excuses come in as to participation from the alleged victims.
Okay, well, I have two questions stemming from your response. A, there are reports that Diddy is excited to take the stand. So when you say, like, God knows what other stories are going to come out of this, do you advise him to take the stand? I mean, is that a good idea? Or do you think he'd be better off to sit this one out and let somebody else fight this battle for him?
I think that was likely a veiled message, if it's true, to the people that may be contacted to testify against him, that he's can't wait to tell the whole story, sort of thing. And this would go right into the federal government's argument that he was Jeffrey Epstein like in terms of holding on to these tapes and or discs of people, the video of people engaging in behavior that they wouldn't want the world to see, and using that as leverage. So that might be where that's coming from. At the end of the day, it's up to the defendant. The attorney can advise all they want, but it's the defendant's right to take the stand if they want and tell their story. And boy, there'd be a lot of people listening if he got up and tried to explain away everything on the stand. That's it's a long way down the road when this actually goes to trial. But my gut on that was, ooh, he's saying, watch out, celebrities.
You are
Don't
so, so
don't
right.
say anything because I can't wait to tell my story.
And then the excuse his attorney used during this new TMZ documentary is that freak offs aren't actually freak offs; they're threesomes. And I am guilty of being part of the 18% rise in streams of Diddy music, and a little bit of it is curiosity. And he sings a lot about threesomes. It's almost like you watch these old interviews, you listen to his old music. He's telling you who he is. There might be a smile on his face and a laugh track behind, you've got the Letterman audience cracking up or whatever, but the Conan audience cracking up. But like, he has told us who he is throughout the years, even in the lyrics to his songs, which you and I both know have in recent years actually come into play in courtrooms. They'll say, and to prove this person's behavior, check out these lyrics. The idea that the freak offs aren't freak offs, they're threesomes with Cassie and somebody else. Is that just another silly excuse that nobody's going to buy? Like the idea of these freak offs, the government, the authorities were so detailed in what those are, and for the attorney to try to throw it away as just a threesome is just kind of like, we're not that stupid. I mean, it's as stupid as the Costco thing.
Yeah, but the defense has to be that everybody involved in whatever you want to call them, threesomes or freak offs, were consenting adults. And that is the defense. That's a viable defense. And it's going to come down to, and Diddy might have to take the stand, the cross examination of the alleged victims for the defense, and then also another narrative. And that, they're getting it out there early in attempts to taint the jury pool. They want people to think about the alternative here, and that is that if you go to Diddy's house, he's, to your point, very open about what he does and what he likes. You are walking into his den, and he's arguing you did it willingly, enthusiastically, and now you're coming back and saying you're a victim. That's the defense. It has to be. The problem is the federal government doesn't go down this road without having hard evidence that these were victims. And I think where you're going to see that flush out is going to be with the co-conspirators, the people around him that are now turning and thinking about their own futures and their own freedom. They will turn in a heartbeat. And that's where it's going to be even more compelling on some levels for jurors, because yes, you're going to have a victim saying the X, and Diddy's argument is why. It's that middle one, the person that wasn't involved in the actual sex part of it, but was there and maybe involved in organizing. That's where the feds, I think, are going to really make hay.
You just said it so much better than his attorney, though. Like, all he needed to say was consenting adults. And the way that,
Yeah,
like that, then I go, oh, okay, yeah. But the way that he dances around it, and I guess you answered another one of my questions too, because I wondered why he would have to have Diddy's permission to do this interview, correct? And if so, you're saying he likely is doing it because the court of public opinion means something to Sean Combs right now. Is that what you believe?
yeah. I mean, from a strategic standpoint, it means something in terms of jury selection. Once a juror is selected, they have something coming into a trial, and you want to get the narrative out there in a high-profile case out. You want your story out there, because right now the feds have their story with their press conference, and that got a lot of attention because it was so creepy. So that's a strategic element of all of this, and Diddy is, I'm sure, well aware of where his defense is going to have to go. And this wasn't something that crept up on him. They knew this was coming. He went to New York. They have had a strategy for weeks, if not months, before he was taken into custody on how to move forward. Now they've failed so far in trying to get him out on bail, but long term, I think Diddy's going to be very involved in this, and his attorney is out doing his best.
Do you have any this was supposed to be an Alec Baldwin chat. I apologize to Ted. Now that I'm hammering him with Diddy questions. Do you have any idea why J-Lo wouldn't be apologizing to the victim, saying, I'd really have no further comment, but I'm sorry for anybody that feels, like they were a victim of my
Oh
ex?
no, you don't. J-Lo should say nothing. Nothing.
Really?
If the moment you apologize for something, people think you've done something. There's a human nature is, we think that apologies are just that, or that she should craft something to, just to acknowledge the victim. No, 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 no. If you're advising J-Lo, do not say a word and see where all of this lands, because if you say the word "I'm sorry" for them, uh, then now people will turn that on and say, "Oh, you should have, you knew."
Yeah.
And this is zero upside to apologizing, sadly.
Okay, well, that makes sense why a lot of people aren't saying anything, because a lot of people are probably being told, keep your mouth shut, because we don't know what else is coming out. Like, so many people are pointing the finger at Ashton Kutcher, because not only did Ashton Kutcher make some really weird comments about Diddy, but he also wrote a letter of support to Danny Masterson, who, guilty of total monster. You found out he was like the stories that were involved in those assaults are they'll keep you up at night. Um, And then we talked a little bit about Bieber last week. I'm getting asked a lot about him. I'm feeling really bad for Bieber because I don't think he wants to be pulled into this. He's a brand new dad and he was just a kid who might have seen some things. Are we attaching Bieber's name to this because it elevates the story? More people are tuned in, more people are intrigued. Are we really concerned about what he witnessed as a child or how it affected him? Because he went buck wild for a minute. I remembered having to defend him on HLN. Or is there real concern around what Diddy might have done to Justin Bieber? Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, the rumors have been going on for a very long time. And, so you think about if if there is evidence that the federal government has through these seizures that Justin Bieber, as a underage artist under Diddy, was exposed or even assaulted on some level, then it takes down a whole another level. And if you go now, of course, everybody goes back and they're dissecting, Bieber songs. They're dissecting everything and thinking that, oh, he's, maybe talking about this. We have to wait and see. It's a slippery slope, no pun intended, in the lube world, but the
In the Costco world,
I
Costco
don't
aisle.
know that there's nothing out there that there's a lot of speculation on what happened to Justin Bieber, and you just hope that indeed he wasn't put into that position. But I mean, you listen to Usher talking to Howard Stern about what he witnessed hanging out with Diddy as a kid, and I think it was pretty rampant. We'll just have to wait and see. I
You
hope
hope that
that
Usher
Justin Bieber.
wouldn't you then you would hope that Usher wouldn't expose Justin Bieber to that. You'd hope that he'd know better than to and somebody said something like that to me, like, well, why is Usher deleting his Twitter? And I said, I don't know why he's deleting his tweets, but um I do know that I felt like he was redeemed when he got that Super Bowl show because the last thing I remembered about Usher, it's weird how the Super Bowl pulls out all these older artists. You're like, can we not get Olivia Rodrigo? Okay. But when they gave the Super Bowl to Usher, I thought, didn't somebody sue him for giving them a venereal disease? Like, the last thing I thought about Usher was that he wasn't a great guy. And then he gets this Super Bowl show. And so these stories about, oh, well, maybe Usher was a victim too. Maybe he was a victim too, but I don't think I held him on this pedestal that perhaps people have held him on. Maybe I'm just judgmental, Ted. Maybe I need to have a come to Jesus myself.
Maybe. It's so hard to decipher who was complicit, participant, and all the rest of it. And to be honest, uh, we have to see what the federal government has against Diddy, because there are some other accounts of, hey, this is what it was like at his house. There were rooms of, maybe topless women serving drinks, and that was one thing. And then you turn a corner and it became very dark in other rooms where some craziness was going on. But if people were making that jump into crazy world, taking these, drugs and participating in this willingly, and they're adults, then this is a
Consenting
tough
adults.
prosecution.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's huge. So you start to, the Bieber thing. I think we'd already know about it because that would be reflected in the indictment if there was an underage victim. So I would caution people to think that, oh, Bieber something, this all this stuff happened to poor Justin Bieber. Maybe it did. Hopefully not.
Well, I feel sorry for him when he's papped going to church, and he's being papped going to church because of these headlines. And it's like he's a brand new dad. They're calling him gaunt in the headlines. He's a brand new dad. What are the odds that he's sleeping 8 hours a night? Like he doesn't want to be involved in this. I feel real sympathy for him. Um, I guess I'm not going to ask you about Alec Baldwin because I've already taken up way too much of your time. But I do. Do you know anything about this most recent lawsuit? And what's the objective in suing Diddy at this point? Is it because you finally feel like you're going to be believed? Is it because the odds of a quick cash payout are very high right now because they want to make these things go away? Is it just the freedom of being heard? Why do you think we are still seeing more victims coming out? And do we think there's going to be a lot more?
Well, from if you put yourself in a victim's mindset, and let's assume that the victim was victimized,
Yeah.
yes, the runway's been cleared for you to come out without as much scrutiny because others have paved the way for you. And then if you're pessimistic, then it's the person that was all in on it at the time and now maybe down on their luck and they're going for a quick payday. So the civil stuff has to be litigated and it's interesting the way things are settled. The ones that get settled right away, there's validity.
Yes.
The ones that don't, then that is going to be a courtroom battle. So I take every one of the civil allegations with a grain of salt. I love Gloria Allred. She's one of my favorite people on this planet. But when someone calls Gloria, they want to pay, and that's how it works. So this last one, I don't know what to.
Do you know Gloria? Like IRL? Is she in your phone?
Yeah, she's. I went to a movie once with her. Uh, she's a. There's a Netflix doc called Seeing All Red, and if you're one of these people like I hate that woman's always on camera, oh she now watch that, and
Okay.
you'll see she has a very long history of fighting for people that need fighting for.
Yeah.
And has she been successful? Absolutely. But she's resilient and she is an elder statesman in the business, if you will, and has the energy of a 30-year-old still.
I
I
mean,
recently,
I'd say 25 since I guess I'm not 30 anymore. I was going to say she's got a lot more energy than I do and I'm younger than she is. I'd
yeah,
love
she's something else.
I'm gonna hassle you for her contact information because have you seen all of the headlines about Muhammad Al Fayed, who I think we all associated with just the loss of Diana and Dodi. Yes, he had all of this money, but we associated him with this void. And this is Dodi's father, owner. He formerly owned Harrods department store,
Yeah,
which is very famous.
yeah,
And now we're seeing this slew of women coming out saying, I mean, even some of them were sexually right after the death of Dodi and Diana. While we think that he's just this crushed human in the corner, he allegedly was assaulting these women that worked for him. And Gloria represented Dodi's ex-fiance. Dodi was happily engaged to this beautiful actress slash model from America when his father introduced him to Diana, and he quietly snuck off with Diana, still engaged to this woman. Gloria represented her. They did this big press conference. I think it's even featured on The Crown. And Dodi's fiance challenged Dodi and said, like, you just left me alone on a boat while you're running off with this woman and humiliating me. And I'd love to talk to her about her experiences with that family because I've never liked Dodi. I've always hated this fairy tale that was painted about this love story of Diana and Dodi dying together in a tunnel. No, Diana was slumming it. She was trying to make people jealous. I would hope to God that she wasn't actually going to commit to that family. And then the more we're finding out about his father, you're like, ugh, dirty, dirty, gross.
yeah. Yeah, that was totally orchestrated, and that relationship was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll hook you up
Well,
with
thanks.
with
Thank you for
Alred.
letting me go on my Royals diatribe with you during our crime conversation. I really appreciate that. All right. Well, Ted, we've caught up on Diddy. We'll talk about Alec Baldwin at some point again. But if people are jonesing for some Alec Baldwin, you've got a victim to verdict episode coming up on him, right?
Yes, 2 weeks from Sunday will be our Alec Baldwin episode. We've got an Ahmaud Arbery one coming up, Kyle Rittenhouse, really good episodes. Next couple Sundays on Court TV, 8 o'clock Eastern.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. You are my favorite. You're my favorite crime guy, but you're also one of my favorite human beings in the world.
Likewise.
Bye.